So, I wanted to thank you for taking the time to share about your new documentary.
Okay, all right.
And it's called The Open Door. Was there
That's
a
right.
logic behind the name of that?
Well, doors have always been kind of symbols to me. Doors to opportunity, going through doors, because being a visual thinker, it's easier to think if you can see visual things.
Yeah, yeah,
So I
absolutely.
always like, talk to students about trying to find doors to opportunity.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So, how did you end up at CSU?
Well, after I got my PhD, I wanted to go somewhere and teach part-time. And I knew Bernard Rolland, the philosophy professor and animal ethics professor. And CSU was in a great cattle location and really nice place. They called up Bernie and I said, wonder if I could work part-time, teaching classes and things at Colorado State University. So he talked to the chairman,
Mm-hmm,
and then I was invited to do a seminar, and
mm-hmm.
then I came in just as part-time, and that's how it got started back in 1990.
Wow, so you've been there a while. That's awesome.
I've been there since 1990.
Wow. So in the documentary, it revealed that even though you teach animal science, you seem to be just as interested in helping people. And which drives you the most and why?
Well, I want to see, the people that think differently be successful.
Hmm.
And I have a book, Visual Thinking, and I'm a visual thinker. I'm an extreme visual thinker.
Yeah.
Everything I think about is a picture.
Uh-huh.
And one of the problems visual thinkers have is they can't do algebra. But
Hmm.
I worked with brilliant visual thinkers that couldn't do algebra, but they owned metalworking shops and they were building equipment and patenting it, designing and patenting equipment, not
Hmm.
just building it. And I'm very concerned that our educational system is screening out the visual thinkers, the non-mathematicians. Our
Hmm.
educational system doesn't seem to put any value on mechanical aptitude because mechanical aptitude, visual thinking actually are the same thing. And I don't know if I could graduate from high school today. I never could do algebra. I
Yeah.
can't do math in the abstract. I can memorize a formula to do a specific thing, like sizing air cylinders, hydraulic cylinders, because I see the piece of equipment. And then
Hmm.
that formula is related to that type of equipment. See, I can learn that. But in the abstract, one of the problems is I simply can't remember it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's fascinating. I watched the documentary a couple of times just to get a feel for what I wanted to ask you and so forth. But um, so when did you discover that you saw things differently than others and describe, you see things in pictures while most of us see in words.
My first inclination that my thinking was different was in my late 30s. And I got to talking to a speech therapist about thinking. And I
Mm-hmm.
just said to her, think about church steeples. How do they come into your mind? Now I get like PowerPoint slides of specific ones.
Mm-hmm.
I see them. She got this vague two-line thing,
Uh-huh.
very vague. And she was a speech therapist. Maybe why she went to speech therapy, very verbal in her thinking. That
Right.
was my first inkling that people thought differently. And then originally I thought that everybody that was autistic thought in pictures. And then I got a review on Amazon telling me that was wrong.
Huh.
And I got to thinking about that. And I realized that another autistic lady named Jessie Parks thinks in patterns.
Uh-huh.
And that's when I started seeing there was different kinds of thinking. Now, in my book, Visual Thinking, also in my book, The Autistic Brain, I present research that shows now object visualizers like me, the non-mathematicians, and the visual spatial mathematicians, pattern thinkers, are very different kinds of thinking. There's now research that shows that.
That's
But,
fascinating.
but when I was in my 20s and early 30s, I thought everybody thought in pictures. I couldn't figure out why people thought it was stupid to get in a chute and see what cattle were seeing.
Yeah. I love what you said about the one student that came into your class of about 100, and he had a particular shirt on, and you came up and looked at him and said, that would scare a cow.
Well, it was silver or something like that,
Yeah.
something real high contrast. And cattle do see color. They don't see red though. Horses and cattle have a blue and a yellow receptor in their eye, but they don't have a red receptor. Red just comes out like dark gray or black.
Yeah.
Uh,
Huh.
but silver, they definitely would see.
That was interesting, I thought. Um, I want to talk to you a little bit about a tough subject. I hope you're okay with that.
Okay.
There's a great divide in the world between the Western way of life that many of us were raised on and the trend towards shutting down rodeos, horse racing, other equestrian sports. And I know you're really all about protecting the animal. What is your take on this?
Well, I have no problem with racing a horse, but I do have a problem with starting them too young, breeding for speed until they start to get things wrong with them and just break their legs when they're just running.
Hmm.
I have a lot of concerns about some of the animals we're breeding. Breeding dogs that can't breathe, cats with deformed legs, naked, weird cats with
Hmm.
legs that just break, joints that break.
Hmm.
There's some problems with cattle, getting heart problems, uh, bad foot conformation, problems like twisted toenails.
Hmm.
Uh, Animals need to be functional.
Yeah.
And I don't care if it's a pet or it's a sport or it's for a food animal. You've got to breed functional animals. And I have no problem with racing a horse as long as we don't breed horses that have problems or start them too early or use beat them up.
Yeah.
This is how I look at it. There's nothing inherently wrong with racing a horse, but there is something wrong with breeding a horse uh, to the point where it breaks its legs easily.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Um, so your view on the horse slaughter issue, this is a really tough issue for a lot of people. And plants in the US versus horses being transferred thousands of miles out of the country. And I know that you have such a great respect for how cattle are slaughtered. How can we address this, do you think, and respect both sides of that issue
Well,
without
the
becoming
problem is
so
it's gotten so polarized, I don't even want to discuss it.
okay?
One thing I will say, a horse slaughter plant can operate in a really low stress way. I've been in some really decent ones,
Hmm.
and they open the knockbox door, the horse walks in, bang, it's done.
Yeah, yeah.
And it can be done really well. I will say that. That's on my website. Uh,
Hmm.
One of the problems you've got with this is, since it's considered sort of a companion animal, they don't like the idea of eating it.
Yeah, yeah.
That bothers a lot of people.
Hmm.
But, the problem is there's no good answer for that mess. And I'm going to when the potato gets too hot, I drop it.
Okay. Okay. I appreciate that because it's something that I think somehow it's got to be addressed without people being fear of, retaliation of some
Well,
sort.
this is the thing. There's some issues, they're so hot and so illogical that I'm going to just stay away from them.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm walking into a blast furnace and getting bashed on both sides. I don't want to have anything to do with that.
yeah. No, I don't blame you. So another thing I wanted to ask you is what do you hope to accomplish in the next 5 years and why?
Well, right now I'm doing a lot of talks. Just beginning cattle handling talks to vet students because, students still need the basics. Like I'm going to be teaching my first class of the semester tomorrow, and I'm going to guess that 75% of those students have no connection with cattle.
Hmm.
So the beginner stuff is absolutely relevant for them.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm also very concerned that our object visualizers, someone who would be very, very good at working with horses and other animals, are getting screened out due to all these math requirements. I'm not suggesting not having any math. There's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of practical math that I would need for equipment designing. Um, Maybe you could substitute algebra for geometry. I mean, there'd be some things you could do, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
concerned that my kind of thinker is just going to get screened aside and looked at as stupid because they can't do algebra. And when I did some of my very first cattle design projects back in the 70s, they were shown in the previous movie, the HBO movie Temple
Yeah.
Grandin. Um, One of the things that motivated me is I wanted to prove to people I wasn't stupid.
Mm-hmm.
And when I did those projects and they worked really well, I've had nice drawings I had done for them. I'm going, well, I guess I'm not stupid.
No, those drawings were phenomenal. I mean, how you came up with those concepts because you can see it visually is just really something. I
I'm going to
marveled
show
at.
you one of my drawings right here.
Yeah. I mean, how you got the concept to do that because you can actually visualize it is just amazing to me that you were able to do that.
But I
And I
know
think,
other people that are object visualizers,
yeah.
have big metalworking shops, and they started out with something like a welding class when they were in high school,
Hmm.
and they're building all kinds of things.
Hmm.
And I don't want to see us visual thinkers screened out, because you
I
need both the visual thinking minds and the mathematical minds for lots of different things.
Well, you brought up in the documentary that you believe that we need all kinds of thinkers to accomplish things.
Well,
It's
exactly,
yeah.
exactly, because they can work in complementary manner. Like, for
Mhm.
example, on the Road to Visual Thinking book, I
Yeah.
did rough drafts. They were somewhat disorganized. And then Betsy Lerner, my highly verbal co-author, smoothed everything out,
Yeah.
rearranged things. So that's an example of the two kinds of thinkers working together in a complementary manner. Let's
Mm,
go back to a food processing plant. The
mm,
visual thinkers who are terrible at math will invent all of the mechanical equipment, packaging equipment, invent strictly mechanical devices. And
mhm.
we have to have our mathematicians to make sure the roof doesn't fall down and to do the refrigeration system.
Okay.
Refrigeration system requires mathematics.
Hmm.
You see, that you need to have both.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the problems we've got right now is people to fix things. These kids are playing video games in the basement instead of learning how to build things.
Well, you mentioned that the schools don't have the hands-on classes anymore, like woodworking, mechanics, home ec,
Well,
that kind of thing.
some of that's getting put back in high school, but
Mhm.
we need to be hooking these kids very young that building things is fun to do.
Well, and I like how you said that you don't know if you like something until you get to try
Well, you
it.
have to try it. You
Yeah.
don't know until you try it
Yeah.
whether or not you're going to like something.
Yeah. No, I thought that was fantastic. So another thing I wanted to ask you about, what's your hope for the wild Mustangs? We have a lot of Mustang issues here in Colorado, and there's a lot of groups that are trying to help them. But how do you see the problem with overpopulation and that kind of thing?
It's
Uh,
a real problem, and some of them are getting adopted out. Sarah Matlock, one of our faculty members in the equine department, did a wonderful project during COVID. They got about 15 Mustangs from the BLM,
uh,
and they used clicker training to tame them. And
mm,
12 of them got so trained that strange men could show them at halter.
huh,
The three hotheads, they didn't get trained, but there was about 12 of them. I went to that show. It
that's
was very, very impressive. This all went on during COVID, and they just trained them with clicker training. And 12 out of the 15 strange men, and it was mainly women who'd worked with them, put a halter on them and show them at the halter.
wow, that's
And it
incredible.
wasn't that hard to do.
Hmm.
And these are the kinds of things that we need to be doing. There's a lot of them would be very good horses, but on the other hand, we can't just let horses strip the pasture land.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a problem. I have a paper that people might like to read. It's called Grazing Cattle, Sheep, and Goats is an important part of a sustainable agricultural future. And, I'm a big fan of grazing, but you
Mm,
have to manage it.
yeah,
You have to manage grazing. You have
yeah.
to rotate pastures.
Hmm. Well, and you talk about quality of life for animals in the talks I've heard you say and things like
Yes.
that. And that's a huge topic because Mustangs are now being captured and kept in containment for the rest of their lives. And yet we do have to address the problem of overgrazing. And
Oh,
so,
yeah. And when they put them in basically in cattle feedlots,
yeah.
and, and they line up like cattle when the feed wagon comes. I've seen it.
Hmm. It'd be nice to find homes for these horses. I know a lot of people that have adopted Mustangs that say they're some of the best horses they've had.
Yes, I've heard that.
They don't have the lameness problems. They just are generally really good and they don't have the baggage that a lot of other horses have and how they were
Well, some
trained.
of the breeding, I'm very concerned. Some of my biggest welfare concerns with a lot of animals is some of the animals that we're breeding.
Hmm.
Uh, breed dogs that can't breathe. I think that's just horrible.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and in the quarter horse world, I've been raised in that community, and we see that they used to be the all-around horse, and now they're very specialized in, in several different categories. And I think that's again where we get into like the halter horses that are post-legged and they're really pretty to look at, but not super functional and things like that.
Well, and then I've seen that extreme dish face on the
Mhm.
extreme Arabian. They look like seahorses.
Yeah, yeah.
No, I don't like that sort of stuff. The problem is you overselect an animal for any trait, you're going to wreck your animal.
Hmm. Yeah.
If you just go overboard on it.
I agree with that. Getting back to Sarah Matlock, she is a wonderful person. I had the opportunity to work with her a little bit on Colorado Horse Council, and she was a joy to work with, and I think a real asset to the organization. But do you feel that Colorado Horse Council is helping our community, and if how could we improve and that kind of thing? I think it's important to have organizations like that that advocate for the horse.
Well, I haven't really followed them that closely, but
Hmm.
I'm, they, very, as I said before, I'm very concerned about some of the breeding that's going on.
Yeah, yeah. I met you at the Rocky Mountain Horse Expo a couple of years ago. You were promoting one of your new books, and just appreciate all that you're doing in the community, Temple. And I appreciate the opportunity to share some of your thoughts with our readers and viewers. And I'm looking forward to promoting your book, Visual Thinking. I
Yeah,
think,
got it right here. In fact, it has a chapter on animal consciousness.
really.
Very last chapter is on animal consciousness. And some of the arguments about whether or not animals can think, I think goes back to thinking in words.
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
see, a lot of people that are into a lot of philosophy and a lot of this kind of stuff, the verbal thinkers,
Hmm.
psychologists, they think you have to have words for thought. Well, there was a new study that came out last year, and it's not in this book, unfortunately, that showed that language is not required for thinking.
Yeah.
I was really pleased to see that.
Absolutely. I think that's great. Well, do
And
you
they don't think in language.
know? And we
Yeah,
try to humanize them and treat them like people, and they're not.
well,
I really like how delineated between the time of, how animals view things. And I like what you said about the only difference between animals and humans is the size of their computer.
that's right. That is mainly the main difference. And then there's some instinctual behaviors, like, for example, bulls fight like this,
Hmm.
horses rear up and flail.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, see, now that's a hardwired uh, uh, instinct. The bulls butt heads and horses rear up and strike.
Yeah. Yeah.
See, there's some things like that are hardwired. But then the other thing is the emotional systems. I really like the Jack Panksepp emotional systems
Hmm.
that all mammals have. You
Yeah.
have fear, then you have anger. A lot of problems you have with horses are fear,
Yeah. Okay.
especially when it comes to training. And then you have separation distress. You
Hmm.
get one horse away from the others, he's whinnying. That's separation distress. Then you have seek. Some animals are more curious and will explore further.
Hmm.
Some cattle, for example, will graze more out further than other cattle. There's been research on that. New Mexico State University.
Hmm.
And then you've got sex drive, you've got mother young nurturing,
Hmm.
oxytocin system,
Hmm.
and then you've got play.
Yeah.
These emotional systems, all animals have got it.
Yeah. So, in wrapping up, what was one thought you would like to leave our viewers with about the documentary and about your book?
Well, and the documentary has a lot of emphasis in there on teaching,
Mhm.
and I think teaching is really important. And in my book, Visual Thinking, I want people to understand there is different kinds of thinking.
Mhm.
And animals, if you're working with animals, I say get away from verbal language. An animal lives in a sensory based world,
Mhm.
not a word based world. Its memories are going to be pictures, sounds, smells, touch sensations. Like,
Yeah.
for example, sometimes a horse bucks when you change gates. Well,
Mm-hmm.
think about it. A saddle feels totally different than a walk, trot, and canter.
Mm-hmm.
So I have the students put a backpack on and say, now I want you to walk, trot, canter, and see how that backpack feels different. Well, you see all of a sudden that sudden novelty, and
Mm-hmm.
that scares them. I've gotten used to the saddle of the trot, but then when you canter, it feels completely different.
Yeah.
Now, I've also seen a situation where a horse was frothing at the mouth, and the horse had a snaffle bit, which for most horses is your beginner bit.
Mm-hmm.
And if somebody's going to do some rough training, the snaffle bit probably was involved in that,
Mm-hmm.
get jerked around and stuff like that. And so the snaffle bit's bad. I've seen a situation where you switch that out to a solid one piece bit. It's like opening a new file folder.
Huh.
Everything just calmed down because a one piece bit is a different feeling picture than a jointed bit. I'm not saying snaffles are bad.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying that oftentimes the snaffles associated with bad things because if the horse has had rough training, the beginner bit's a bit that they probably did the rough training with.
Huh.
But we had one horse in our right horse class where I was helping out doing a TA, and we put one a solid straight bar in its mouth. It calmed right down. It was like magic.
Huh. I wouldn't have thought of that. That's
But think about
fascinating.
it, different bits are different feeling pictures.
Yeah.
There was a horse that I talk about in my book, Animals in Translation, that was afraid of black cowboy hats
Hmm.
because he was abused by, in fact, he was a Mustang, and he'd had alcohol chucked in his face, and the guy who did it had a black hat. So black cowboy hats are bad. White cowboy hats were just fine, but you
Hmm.
couldn't get near him with a black hat. You
Yeah.
see, it's a picture memory.
Yeah. That is fascinating. But well, anyway, Temple, I'd like to wrap things up with you. Thank you for
Okay.
your time, and I hope to get the opportunity to do this again on a maybe another topic and let people come up and, learn more about your equine center. So,
Okay, well, that'd be just great.
yeah.
They're open on the weekdays during business hours.
Yeah, so we'll have to arrange that. But anyway, thank you so much for your time. I so appreciate it. You are really an asset to our community and much loved from what I understand. So,
Well, thank you very much for having me. And I'm no, I think we need to. Sarah Matlock did this great stuff on clicker training Mustangs. And then I had a lady call me up. She had a Mustang. She didn't know what to do with it. She says, I can't touch it. I can't do anything with it. And I suggested my book, Animals Make Us Human, where I talk about clicker training. And let's just start clicker training it. And within a month, she had a halter on it and was picking up its feet.
yeah, that's fascinating. So, well, we'll get to see more of some of your thoughts on this stuff, and maybe we'll get to come up and visit the school one of these days. And I just want to thank you very much for your
Okay,
time.
well, great to talk to you.
Yeah, you have a wonderful rest
I
of your
will.
day. Thank you, Temple.
Okay, I'm going to leave the meeting and thank you for having me.
You bet. Thank you.
Okay,
Bye bye.
great. Bye.